business owners, they'll roll over, they'll grab their phone next to their bed and, oh, what's the email, social media. Boom, you've just lost control of your mind straight up.
This is a very controversial topic, and I hope that people get triggered because this is an opinion, and if you don't like it, you don't have to agree with it. That's the beauty of the world we live in.
I'm doing all this hard work, or I'm doing this or doing that. All she wants you to do is look her in the eyes and listen to her.
I truly believe that most women want a masculine, decisive man, a man who takes action and isn't the nice guy, but also isn't a dickhead.
There's not a definitive thing of, well, the woman should do this and the man should do this. You are.
A lot of guys will be listening to this and go, great, get up early, get in a good routine, do my day, come home, switch off. But it's like, how the fuck do I switch off?
Introducing Jared Wiseman, a seasoned business coach committed to empowering entrepreneurs to master the art of launching and scaling their ventures. Jared emphasizes the importance of diversifying client acquisition strategies beyond social media, ensuring businesses are not solely dependent on these platforms. Join us as we explore Jared's insights and his mission.
All right, we have Jared Wiseman today, a husband, a father, and a business owner who helps other business owners scale their businesses and their lives. Super excited for today's chat, mate. Thank you so much for coming in. How you feeling?
I'm excited. Yeah, and a pleasure to come in.
Awesome, man. So I'd love to start with, we've got health, wealth, relationships. We'll get into business in a second, but I'd love to hear about your story. What have been the struggles that you've been dealing with, being a dad, being a husband, being a business owner? What sort of challenges have you been facing?
Yeah, I mean, so I've got 4 children, all under 10. And so all different characters, all different things going on. And, running a business from home to me was kind of almost always the dream a little bit. I can dig into that a little bit deeper, but definitely working from home. My wife's at home, the kids are at home. It's definitely a challenge. But at the same time, I'm well aware it's a first world issue. But yeah, that's probably one of the harder parts of running a business. And, for me, I've always wanted to be there for my children. I've always wanted to be a active father. I had that growing up and loved that I had parents always available for me. So yeah, it's something I've always wanted, but it certainly comes with challenges when you can hear screaming kids in the background while you're trying to record a video or talking to a client or things like that. But again, if that's the worst I'm dealing with, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier when we were talking before the pod, you have a really happy marriage and a great life. Was it always that way, or did you guys have challenges navigating the 4 kids? Because a lot of guys, I'm guilty of this. I thought I'd have it together, got a successful business, got a great marriage. First kid comes along and I'm like, fuck, I teach this shit and I was really struggling. So any challenges in terms of balance, communication, connection, stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was only talking to a client about this the other day that I think becoming a parent is without question your biggest test of leadership you will ever have. Like it gets you at your most vulnerable. It exposes every weakness that you've got. And I do have quite a few, with that sort of stuff. And, someone who's probably, I'd say, a reformed, nice guy, someone that tends to be a bit of a perfectionist with certain things. I like a clean environment, different stuff like that, yeah, it does push you to your edge as much as you love your children unconditionally. And then I think, obviously your partner comes into the equation where, and particularly in my setup, my wife even currently is like struggling with sleep, so she's tired, she's emotional, and it definitely challenges the relationship. I think for me, what keeps us strong is, we do have really good communication, and that's probably my biggest thing whenever I'm working with male clients in particular, that you just have to communicate. You have to over communicate, and the feminine energy, right, sometimes doesn't necessarily want to give it to you directly. There's subtle signs, that you get the cold shoulder or whatnot. And if you aren't good at communicating, then it's to be fair, it's easy for your relationship to go bad. It's hard work. So yeah, for us, I think communication's been a big one, and just understanding you're in it together as well. I think so much is, without going down this rabbit hole, but the whole equality movement, I think, has really screwed a lot of relationships up in that, you know, it's well, I can do what you can do kind of thing, as opposed to you're a team, you know, and you've got to work together. And, you know, it's something I think my wife and I have done very well, but certainly not without our disagreements and our challenges and whatnot. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you've had the communication issues that a lot of guys go through. For example, you know, sleepless nights, the hormones, the stress, and that can cause a bit of collision, right? Whether it's a snappy remark or, you know, saying I'm fine and bottling things up. The resentment, you know, maybe you've experienced this, maybe you haven't. When you finish work after a long day, whether you're working away or from home, and the house is a mess, and you're like, fuck, I've been working all day. Like, you've got a job, you know, all you have to do is make sure the kids don't die and keep the house clean. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Those stories start to circulate for a lot of guys. And that's where we go into that victim mentality and blame. And that can cause a lot of disconnection and arguments. We'll touch on the equality and gender role stuff, because I think that's really important. But before we do, man, I mean, I consider you quite a successful guy, successful husband, successful father, successful business owner. But what has been the darkest time for you when it comes to business and relationships? What have been sort of the hardest things you've had to navigate?
Oh, look, so, I mean, for me, my previous business and company, I was in a business partnership with my brother, and we'd done really well. It was health and fitness space. And, you know, I'd been in that, I think it was around 12-ish years. And my wife and I, we needed change. Like, we needed to grow. It was something we couldn't necessarily put into words, but we just needed to expand. And this business was in Tasmania. And so for us, moving interstate was, you know, a big deal. I think we were pregnant with our second child at the time. Well, my wife was pregnant, I wasn't, but, and, you know, both from very close families. And so to take that leap was really, really hard, you know. And for myself, you know, some of my, I guess, challenges as a child was I was very much a mummy's boy. And you know, I'm still very close with my family and love them dearly, and they gave me everything from a love perspective. But you know, I struggled with a lot of separation stuff when I was a little child. And you know, to finally, I guess, grow up and grow some balls effectively and move away, and then also, you know, have that feeling that I was going to let down my brother, who was my business partner, my family, and, you know, not break the family, but it was a very symbolic time. And so, you know, we made that move. I was still owned part of the business, or half the business, but moved interstate. And then when it was time where I was like, you know, I'm done, you know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have that moment where they get to a point where they're like, I've just got to tap out here. And effectively tapped out and went back to zero, you know, and my wife was like, what the hell are you doing? We need income. Like, we need to survive. And I'm like, we will, you know, and I was so certain and confident I could do that.
What was the pressure like, though, from her? Like, did you feel any uncertainty from her or fear from her?
I did, but what I guess the you know, and there's a lot of lessons in this, and even for myself, you know, a good reminder that there was a lot of uncertainty from her, but because I was so certain and because I was so confident, it was fine, you know. And, you know, we could talk about sales and different things like that, is how important certainty is. And I think as a man, it's like the feminine or women are so good at that energy and reading when things aren't certain or when you're not stepping up or whatever it was. And so while she was uncertain, she was cool. You know, she believed me that I had this, and very quickly, you know, I made six figures within the first 3 to 6 months. And, you know, I guess it was something I was very proud of as well, that I'd taken another big step, and made a really tough decision, and got through it. But it was definitely that period was really tough. Yeah.
Just really quickly, if you're getting value from this podcast episode, I'd appreciate a massive favor. If you're watching on YouTube, give this a thumbs up, or if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other platform, give this 5 stars. It helps us reach more men, keep more families together, and get better guests onto the show. So if you're getting value, all that I ask is you take 5 seconds to give it a thumbs up or 5 stars so we can help more people and keep delivering you epic value.
Yeah, of course. So where does that certainty come from for you? Because a lot of guys listening to this, they're lacking certainty, right? They're uncertain whether or not their business can give them freedom. They're stuck in a prison. They're uncertain whether or not their marriage is going to work out. A lot of guys, their wife says, I don't love you anymore. I can't do this anymore. And they're trying to juggle all these balls and wear all these hats: husband, provider, business owner, father. And it's fucking hard for a lot of guys, right? So like when you're in this place lacking certainty, your partner feels that, your kids feel it, and then she starts to feel uncertain. Where did that certainty come from for you? And how can someone listening find that certainty within themselves to have a better marriage, to have a better business, to fucking figure this shit out?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I don't know if I've got all the answers, but I think clarity is really important. But in saying that, I love the saying, action precedes clarity. And that sometimes people sit back thinking that, this magical thing's going to happen to them and they're going to get all this clarity. I don't know. I'm a little more skeptical on that from my own experience, that clarity comes when you're taking action.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm not sure if that fully answers the question, but
you create it then through action.
That's right. Yeah. And sometimes you might not know what you want, but you know what you don't want, and it's just it's movement, like move towards it. Like I'm big on bigger visions in terms of at least knowing what's the big picture look like for you. You don't have to know how to get there. And when I go through it with clients, for instance, I don't know anyone who sits there and says, oh, look, I'd love to be lonely and miserable, really overweight, dribbling in an old person's home, not being able to feed myself, right? So most people have some sort of clarity around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that, and I would say be resourceful. There's so many resources out there. There's so many ways people can get help, and a lot of the stuff that you do, right? It's like be resourceful, and probably the other part for me is the decision making piece, and this is where like a lot of men struggle. My brother and I used to talk about this a lot in our previous business, where we would get really frustrated with dudes, where we're like, dude, like, step the fuck up, make a decision. Like they are just getting owned by their partner because they're not stepping up, so their partner has to, and then that's when that dynamic gets really screwed over. But decision making is a muscle, and it's something that has to be used. I know for myself, like I've gone through times where I'm like just wishy-washy, and I piss myself off with it. And then, sometimes you have to just remind yourself, like, just make a fucking decision. It might be the wrong decision, but at least it's a decision.
Yeah.
And I think you'd agree, like successful, and again, a lot of the people listening to this probably do that in their business. But then when they come to their personal lives, maybe the same thing doesn't apply. And so, making decisions is really important. But like I said, it's a muscle. And if you're not doing it in your personal life, well, maybe you need to work out.
Yeah. I mean, it comes back to this idea of clarity, and we combine that with decision making, right? So a lot of men, when you ask them, what do you want? They say wishy-washy shit like, I want a new car, I want a better house, I want more money, I want freedom. And it's like, cool, well, what does that fucking mean? Right? And I think one of the best ways you can create clarity, like you created certainty within yourself, is you just went, I'm going to figure this shit out. And the way you started that was you knew what you didn't want. So like you didn't want your partner to believe that you weren't going to figure it out. You didn't want her to not trust you or believe in you. So you made it happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if anyone listening, it's like if your relationship, you're lacking connection, intimacy, and sex, you don't want that. It's pretty obvious. Let's say your business is a prison. You have no time. You're constantly stressed. You don't want that. That's your point A. And then that allows you to set the target for point B. And then it's like, what do you do about it? You take fucking action. Now you mentioned a word here, decision-making. a lot of guys overthink, right? So we say we're committed. We say we're going to finish work earlier. We say we're going to be less triggered and angry. We say we're going to take action, and we don't fucking follow through. And this idea of overthinking combined with the nice guy comes up for me. So you mentioned the nice guy syndrome and being that guy in the past. How is that affecting your decision making? Were there times where you were sort of putting other people first and not really doing what was right? Like you're putting your family first, your business first, but not yourself first. Talk to me about that with the nice guy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my wife would laugh because she would say, I'm sure that, oh, you have no problems putting yourself first when it comes to certain things, which is true, you know, when it comes to exercise and whatnot. Like it's the old metaphor, which I'm sure plenty of people heard and use is, you know, fitting your own mask first on a plane, right?
Yep.
When it's a safety demonstration. But for me, the nice guy thing was a really interesting story. I remember I was listening to the book No More Mr. Nice Guy. I can't remember the name of the author, but not that that's relevant. But I actually got into it from a personal development perspective of like helping clients. Like I didn't go to that book for like, I'm a nice guy, I need help, you know? And as I was sort of listening to it, some of the earlier stuff was talking about, you know, dysfunctions that nice guys have, you know, porn addictions and all this sort of stuff. That wasn't me. But then as the book went on and it was sort of saying stuff, I distinctly remember walking along the beach back home in Tassie, and it was like a bloody lightning bolt hit me that I'm like, holy shit, like I'm a nice guy.
What is that? What's a nice guy?
Indecisive. I would say lacks purpose. You know, people pleaser. That type of thing for me is like not wanting to upset anyone, you know, and that was very much me as a child. And I don't know, digging deeper, it was probably not wanting to upset my mum or anything like that. And that was not anything that she caused or created. It was just, you know, stuff that happened in my head.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of it centered around what I wanted to do. That I have a very tight family and had a very close connection with all my family at that point. But deeper down, there was things I wanted to do, and I didn't feel like I was being my own self and my own person.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, it was like a bloody lightning bolt hitting me that I'm like, oh shit. It was, you know, literally like the metaphor of your life flashing before your eyes. It was a bit like that, where I'm like, I've been a people pleaser. I've been indecisive. I don't have, you know, my own kind of thing. And I guess to a degree, my wife helped me with that as well. And that's where I think a lot of men get lost and confused around feminine energy. I use it, you know? And so that was kind of the things. And I guess it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm dropping lots of metaphors here, but it's like, it was like, it started showing up just in, you know, on automatic, where I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
You know, not wanting to make a business decision because, oh, that might upset that one client that's ultimately a pain in the ass and will complain about everything.
Yeah.
And so for me, yeah, that moment and that book was really, really powerful for me to see reality of how I was doing it. And, you know, it's still stuff I've got to work on.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, I'm fine for the rest of my life, I never have to worry about it. It's easy to slip back into even simple stuff like, oh, what would you like for dinner tonight, Jared? Oh, I don't know, you decide. No, honestly, I don't mind. What would you like? Oh, look, I'm easy, you know, and you go through that. I want steak and veggies.
Yeah.
You know, and
now, woman.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
yeah. No, but to be fair, it's like, that's a really small example of
not taking action, not being decisive.
Just make the decision. And again, for me, I have to actually consciously think about it and go, okay, actually give her something. Like, that's what she wants, is an actual decision, not some wishy-washy buddy bullshit answer. So
yeah, I think a lot of women want that. Like my sister-in-law, she might listen to this. She's very successful, like high up at the bank, almost got to the top position, then moved to OFX, top position. And she's very like energetic, masculine, strong, which means that she needs a really strong man. And she's had partners in the past who are indecisive, don't know how to match that energy, and that either clash or they would just be too feminine in that relationship. I truly believe that most women want a masculine, decisive man, a man who takes action and isn't the nice guy, but also isn't a dickhead. Because you have the nice guy who's indecisive, oh, whatever you want, darling, gets walked over. Then you have the dickhead who just like is the tyrant in the household. So it sounds like you were able to find a balance between that. I want to talk about this feminine energy piece, but before I do, you mentioned this thing, this lightning bolt hit you. That sounds like awareness, right? And you couldn't unsee it, correct?
Correct.
So that's the reticular activating system. You know when you buy a new car and you see that car everywhere? Well, we can do that in our personal lives, right? We can do that in our businesses, and we can see these areas that need work. So one of the areas for you was being more masculine, but you mentioned feminine energy and how you sort of rely on that or lean on that. What do you mean by that in terms of relationships? Like, how is your partner, as a Beck, correct?
Correct, yeah.
How has she supported you in your business as a man to stop being a nice guy and to start taking more action? How's that happened?
Yeah, no, like I guess if I take some kind of, or give myself some sort of pat on the back here, it's like the fact that I understand this makes it work. And that's what I would, I guess, say to a lot of men is that you have to understand. And look, we're talking generalizations here because I get it. People get easily triggered when you talk man, woman, all this stuff. But
let them get triggered.
Yeah, that's your shit. That's your shit. But there are generalizations. But for me, it's like my wife has really high standards for me.
Good. Now,
and still, there's times where it's like it's a little bit triggering in the initial part where you're like, fuck you, like, but for me, I think I've got again enough knowledge and enough self-awareness to even if I get my back up initially, they know what you're capable of. And the thing is that the feminine want safety, security. They want someone to look after them, someone to provide for them. As much as there's all this movement of like, I don't need no man, I don't know, the majority of successful relationships I know, like I said earlier on, they're a team. You work together. And so for me, I see there's something off with my wife, for instance, if there's you give that bloody bit of silent treatment which really pisses you off, right, as a man, where you're like, fuck, what's wrong with her and all this. And even my boys at home, they're like, what's wrong with mum? Why is she... But again, if you've got enough self-awareness, and I'll sort of sit back and go, all right, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, I probably haven't been helping out as much tonight as I should. Maybe I need to take the baby. Maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do that. And so again, it goes back to understanding that they actually believe in you. And maybe it's the paradigm shift that some people need to make rather than like, oh, she's emotional or she's this or she's that. No, she actually fucking believes you can be so much better than what you're being. And so for me, I use that and I use that in a way that it's like she knows what I'm capable of, and it's beautiful in a lot of ways that she almost sees more in me than what I see in myself to a degree. And so if you're open enough to kind of view it through that lens, one, it's even if that's all bullshit, it's still a lot better way to look at it than what the fuck's wrong with them.
Yeah.
Why is she in this fucking mood and all this? It's not say the case is always that you're doing something wrong or anything like that, but that's the way I've looked at it, and it's so simple in so many ways. But it doesn't, I wouldn't necessarily say it comes naturally. Maybe that's just me. But, when I'm providing and I'm stepping up and I'm being my best self, like, she's so happy. She's so free. She's so light. She's so playful.
Yeah.
And I've got way too much evidence in my relationship anyway that's the case. When she's not like that, look, she could be tired or things like that. But generally speaking, if I look at myself, I'm like, dude, you're not stepping up.
Yeah.
And it's hard, like, because sometimes it's like, I'm fucked, I'm tired, I want to lay on the couch, I want to just do nothing,
Yeah. But you take responsibility.
Yes.
So last night I got home and I was wrecked. I had a big headache and I just said to my wife, I need to go lie down. Can you look after our daughter tonight? And she instantly said, yeah, I've got your back. But like 6 months ago, she would have been like, no, fuck you. She wouldn't have said that, but her tonality would have said that. You've got your role. You're meant to help out with the kids. But we've got to a point where I've led her for so long that she feels safe and secure to do that with me. And what you're talking about here with Beck is you're talking about a relationship where she understands you, you understand her. And when something's wrong in the relationship, you're aware of it and you ask yourself, what's my role in this? It's not that she doesn't have a role to play. It's not that you don't have a role to play. It's like, I can't control my wife. Clearly something's up. How can I step up? And man, when you step up as a man, it is impossible for your partner not to follow. They might not come on the whole journey, but that's what they want and need. And so many men blame game. She doesn't give me sex. She doesn't respect me. I work so fucking hard. She doesn't appreciate me. And I have to do the dishes. Just do the fucking dishes.
Yeah.
She's tired. Have you asked her how she's feeling? Right? So you're aware of these things. Is that an awareness you've always had? Is this teamwork something you've always had? Or have you had to have some difficult conversations with the kids and the business to get to this point? What's that journey been like for you?
Yeah, great question. So I guess for me, it's stuff I've learnt along the way. And I've got a lot of female friends, for instance, which it's a very different conversation when they're the ones in the relationship that's got that understanding, but their male partner doesn't.
Disaster.
That's a disaster. Yeah, it really is. And a lot of really good women that struggle to get a partner. Like, and we won't go into that, but it's like, good luck to you kind of thing. And I've said that, like, they're looking for a very unique kind of person. But the other way is the way I look at it. My wife's not massively into personal development and any of that. But when I'm bringing my best self, it flows beautifully.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think, and again, these would be very common resources, but your 5 love languages is a simple one, but it's so easy. Like you say, I'm doing all this hard work, or I'm doing this or doing that. All she wants you to do is look her in the fucking eyes and listen to her. I love like the old American Pie movies, and it was, what's his name? Oz or whatever. And he goes, all you got to do is ask them questions and listen to what they have to say and shit.
Yeah, it sounds so simple, right?
And it's like, but it's kind of true. It's like, you just know what, like it. And again, it doesn't matter as man, woman, whatever. Everyone wants to be loved, or how do they like to be loved? And
are they feeling that love? Because how often do you like go, I'm doing everything I can. What more do you want from me? And it's like, well, you're clearly not doing the things she wants.
Yes. Yeah.
Now
the one thing I will say, and it's like, not every relationship will work out, and not every relationship should stay together. And there may be some people listening to this that maybe are on the fence or whatever. The reason why I believe my wife and I work as well as we do is because we have shared values. And I think your values set is like, if you aren't aligned with the values, it's gonna break down at some point.
Yeah.
I remember a friend years and years ago, and she was with this guy. She loved kids. She wanted kids. He didn't want to have kids. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, yeah, nice guy. Yeah, you're both interested in health, but one's values was family big time. The other one, I don't want family.
Yeah.
That's kind of something you need to work out very soon in a relationship. So health's been a big part of my life. I'm very passionate about health and all the benefits it provides. My wife is too, and I've seen it, like my previous business, again, health and fitness, where I've seen the partner resent their partner because, they're going to this gym all the time, or
they're not helping me with the kids, like they're doing something for themselves.
Yeah, and dudes in particular, where they get jealous of their own wife, they will like try and sabotage them. I've got hundreds of stories of that, which is fucking like, my brother and I are like, what? Surely not.
Yeah,
they would be jealous because their wife's lost weight, feeling younger, feeling happy. They've got friends. They've got connections with other like-minded people. They're looking better, and you'd think, wow, how good's that? Your wife's getting hotter.
Yeah,
no, like they would get fucking jealous of it.
Yeah, it's that victim mentality. Like you mentioned, your wife holds you to a high standard. That is the role of our partner.
Yeah.
Right? It's the role of our clients in business to hold us to a high standard so we deliver a great product. But in our relationship, when your wife's getting healthy or fit or doing personal development and you're not coming on the journey, that is her cue to you to come on the fucking journey.
Yeah.
And you talked about values. Like I've seen that you actually can shift values in a relationship. With Rosie, my wife, when we first got together, she was into health. I was into health. She had never done personal development. And I had to like push and prod and poke her in the right direction. Now she's doing courses, she's reading books, she's doing hypnobirthing, she's doing all these things. And I'm proud to say I was a part of that, and her values have shifted. But she also holds me to a higher standard like Beck does for you. So if there's a man listening to this right now and he's like, well, my wife's nagging me, or she's emotional, or it's her period, maybe she's trying to hold you to a fucking high standard.
Yeah.
Because think about at the beginning of a relationship, how much effort we put in compared to 5 years or 10 years down the line.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
How have you been able to, in your relationship, keep those standards high like you did at the beginning? What do you do? Do you do date nights? What do you do to stay connected?
Well, we probably should do date nights, and if my wife watches
I've got
this,
a program.
I'm sure
It's called The Empowered Man. I'll go.
yeah. I'll do that firstly. But yeah, I mean, for us, we get on well, you know, and I think, again, without sort of going on about it, it goes back to that we do share values, and that we do, you know, we've got different interests and things like that. So that keeps some variety there. But I just, for me, it's the communication piece. Like it's so important to both parties in the relationship to speak freely, you know, and like, you know, oh, what's up with you? Oh, nothing, you know, fucking
I'm fine.
Yeah, you're not. And that, and again, I would say as a man, like my wife says that, I'm saying, that's bullshit. Tell me what I've done. Hit me. Like, give it to me.
Yeah.
Well, you this, and
you
again,
want to know. You're curious.
That's right. And I won't say try because I don't like that word, but I give my very best to be calm no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if I don't agree with it, and just like, okay, yep, fair call. And take ownership. Like, there is nothing more liberating, in my opinion, than taking self-responsibility. Like just owning everything. It doesn't mean it's always your fault, but just own it. What's happening?
Yeah.
You can only, you know, if you don't see yourself as part of the problem, you don't see yourself as part of the solution. And so again, if there's a relationship that's struggling, it's like, look at yourself. I've had clients, I remember one client in particular, and she was sort of coming at me with like, he's doing this, he's doing that, he's doing that. And it was like, what do I do? And I'm like, what do you need to do? Like, you know, and she was, afterwards, she really thanked me because she said no one is like, all her, say, friends were like, oh yeah, you know, he shouldn't be doing that. But actually helping her to look at herself. Yeah. And basically we said, well, what are you going to do? What do you need to do? And even relationships that are on the edge, where I'm like, instead of looking at what you can take, look at what are all the things you can do to give this everything, and see what happens. You know, because if you give it everything and you give it your very best, I'd be confident 9 times out of 10, it's like it will work out. And if it doesn't, well, you can at least walk away from that relationship and go, I gave it everything I've got. It didn't work out.
Yeah. It's about being able to put your hand on your heart and say, I'm the best version of myself.
Yeah.
And if they're not going to come on the journey, tough titties.
Yeah.
You've done everything you can. I had a mentor about 5 years ago, and I called him up to complain exactly like that woman was doing. My wife's not giving me sex. She's not respecting me. She's not appreciating me. I work so fucking hard, blah, blah, blah. And I went on for about 3 minutes, and he stopped me and he said, stop, shut the fuck up. I'm like, what do you mean shut the fuck up? I'm paying you money. It's like, what are you not doing and what are you doing? So what are you not doing that can make it better? What are you doing that's making it worse? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I not doing? I just told you all the things she's not. Shut the fuck up. What are you not doing? And I had that lightning bolt moment you had. So I went home and I sat down with my wife and I said, look, I know we're having trouble. I want to take ownership of my role. Like, what am I not doing? Like, I want to know from you. I want to understand. She's like, no, it's fine. No, babe, like, we're upset at each other again, argument again. What am I not doing? And she spent like 30 minutes telling me all the shit I'd done wrong. And in my head, I'm thinking, fuck you. Like the whole time, she's just like, you don't do this. You say you're going to finish work on time. You don't spend time with me anymore. We don't go on dates. You've put on weight, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, fuck you. 30 minutes in, 35 minutes in, she finishes and she's light and smiling and happy. Got it all off her chest because she felt safe to speak freely, like you said. And about 30 minutes in, I'm like, is there anything else? And she says, no, that's it. I'm like, thank fucking God. But I said to her after that point, I'm like, thank you for holding me to a higher standard, something along those lines. I'm committed to changing that. And that sparked me getting better. And guess what happened when I gave her what she wanted? She started giving me what I wanted. So I allowed her to speak freely. So many men are terrified of that. How do you create an environment with Beck where you can communicate and speak freely with each other without getting triggered, without attacking each other? How do you guys do that in your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely not perfect, and we definitely have times where, you know, that happens. And again, especially when you've got 4 young children and you're tired, you're vulnerable.
Stress from business.
That's right, all that stuff. Yeah. So we're certainly not perfect, and I think that's an important message in itself, is that we're not aiming for perfection.
Yeah.
But I'll go on about the communication piece, that I think it's habitual. So it's a muscle that we've built. Mm-hmm. And again, pumping myself up a little bit here, is that I have probably led that in, from my perspective, from my own responsibility as the man in the relationship, that, mm-hmm. you know, I push her at times to say, no, come on. And also, I think maintaining a neutral emotional kind of level, you know, if you're hot coming into it, it's probably not the time. I think one thing we are quite good at is not necessarily storming out, but just give it 10 to 15 minutes for the you know, the pressure to sort of come down a little bit, and you know, go out, you know, or you live on the Gold Coast, go to the beach for 10 minutes or do something like that. Sometimes there's a time for it. So it's understanding a little bit of that for us, is that, you know, if we're in that heated kind of feel, maybe then's not the time.
But do you always resolve it that day? Do you ever leave anything?
100%, yeah. I can't. And it's something, going back to business, my brother and I were really good at. Like, we went, however long we're in business, 10, 12 years, we hardly ever had an argument.
Yeah.
You know, because we would over communicate, and we would just always, even with clients, like if there was that lingering thing, we'd just like, fuck it, get it sorted today, because I won't sleep.
Yeah.
You know, and to me, it's poison, like holding any kind of resentment or anger or whatnot. Yeah, there's times where we probably go to bed and, you know, things aren't all, you know, bubbly and beautiful, but it would never be, you know, a big argument that doesn't get resolved.
That's the lesson in that, is resolve it. Like that, I think that's why you have such a happy marriage, and why you're balancing 4 children, a successful business, and a marriage, and your health, and they're all lined up. You got to understand how rare that is, right? Like, most men don't get 1 or 2 of those things right. And it sounds like it's because you resolve these issues, but you're not doing it in a forceful way. You're not forcing it to be resolved. You're leading it to be resolved, right?
Yeah, and there's times, to be fair, where I have tried to force it, where I'm probably like a bit triggered.
Yeah.
Just fucking tell me what's going on, you know? And she's like, just leave me alone, you know? And it sort of gets to that point where you're like, that's not the time, generally. And for me, it always comes back to, even if you do have a dispute, it's like owning your part in it. And your language is important. I don't want to give away my strategies to my wife here and now. I apologize, but quite often I will just say, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my part in that. I did this and I did this, and just owning what you do.
Amazing.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll go, yeah, look, me too.
Yeah, because they don't feel attacked anymore. So what you're doing is you're taking the attacks down. You're like, you know what? I'm going to be vulnerable. I fucked up. Doesn't mean they didn't fuck up.
Yeah.
You don't need to tell them that.
No.
So that's amazing. And we won't give her all the secrets. Don't worry. But I want to move on to business in a second, but there's some really powerful tools here for the listener on communication. Like, even the way you're talking to me, you're super communicative. You know how to frame things really well. When you and Becca are having these discussions, and when I'm having them with Rosie, it sounds like what you're doing is you're understanding your partner instead of mind reading, right? We tend to mind read in a relationship. So do you ask her how she's feeling? Do you ask her for her perspective? Like, how would you say is the best way to communicate to understand your partner's point of view, so that then she can also understand you? Do you have an idea around that?
I mean, it's the listening part, right? That and again, I'm fully transparent that sometimes I struggle in that space, right? Where if I've got multiple things going on, but I will say, hey, I didn't listen to a word you said then. Sorry, what did you say? You know,
Nice.
So I think definitely the active listening, and to be fair, like these things here are just, they're amazing in so many ways, but they are so destructive for our minds and our ability to focus. And You know, even I can't remember, there was something I read recently, but it was like I had a bit of a moment where I'm like, geez, I haven't looked into my kids' eyes when I'm talking to them that much, because you're like, you know, you're always doing something else as opposed to just sitting and like staring them in the eye and making that eye contact. So presence is something that a lot of men struggle with, and I'm fully transparent that, again, I'm one of those people that that does struggle with that. But you know, I guess in terms of your ability to communicate, then you know, what's the saying? Do as I say, not as I do in this situation. But definitely give it presence. Look them in the eye. Stop doing what you're doing, and
be in the moment.
Be in the moment. Yeah. Which is, again, it is challenging, but
yeah. But you're working on, and this is the thing, we're not perfect, right? Like, we've both got successful businesses. A lot of people listening are successful financially, but there's no point being successful if you don't connect with your wife, if you're not leading your children, and then they end up fucking leaving.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it is a balancing act. Some days you're going to grind more and work more. That's okay. But try and balance it out. For those of you guys that are listening as well and didn't see the video, he put up a phone when he said this is destructive. And that's what we mean. These screens and work can be so destructive, but there also can be balance.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.
We're about to get into balance and business in a second, but I have one more question around relationships, because you're spitting some hot fire right now. So thank you for being a dragon.
No
gender roles. Okay. This is a very controversial topic, and I hope that people get triggered, because this is an opinion. And if you don't like it, you don't have to agree with it. That's the beauty of the world we live in. So what is your opinion on gender roles? And in your team, you run the business, you provide. What does Beck do in the relationship? What is her role? And then what is your role? And how do those come together as a team?
Yeah, and team being the operative word, I think that's where, if we rewind, I guess, to this equality movement, that I think it probably started with good meaning. That, and I talked to my mum back when Dad was working in the 80s, and Mum's definitely not a feminist or anything like that, but she always just said, like, they were just chauvinist pigs. Like, literally, women were treated like shit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work that needed to be done there, which is great. When I first started in business, I remember reading the Equal Opportunity Act, where it was basically that people are chosen on their merit. It doesn't matter sex, race, religion, any of these things, that you're chosen because you're the best candidate. Well, today, you are specifically, in the name of equality, you are now specifically chosen because of one of those things, because that ticks a quota and whatnot, and that pisses me off, to be fair.
Yeah. So
bringing that back to that, it's been a touchy subject that, women can do what men can and whatnot. The lines have been blurred. There's not a definitive thing of, well, the woman should do this and the man should do this. It's, you are married, you are united, you are a team. It's up to you guys as to what that looks like. For me, this will sound really weird, but I actually like cleaning. Like, I enjoy having a clean environment. And especially with 4 kids, it's very triggering, where I'm like, I've just cleaned that end of the house and I come down and there's a friggin' nuclear bomb that's gone off in this end, right?
Yeah.
So we share a lot of that. For me, it's the stuff around. So Beck's not working at the minute.
Yeah.
And again, that's been a sort of a bit of a thing where she loves what she does. She works in the health science space in radiography, and she loves what she does. But purely from a family dynamic, it just doesn't work at the minute, her working. Now then, that puts it back on me, is like, well, I need to provide. And there's been times in this current business where I haven't provided enough, and the income dries up. You know what this space is like, that it can be, a bit hot and cold. And so what works at the minute for us is that, effectively I'm the provider in terms of that stuff. But then outside of that, it's not a case for me anyway, where you come in and, all right, hands back, sit on the couch, get me dinner, bitch, that type of thing.
That is chauvinistic and that is unacceptable.
But at the same time, it's like, I know of relationships where the man is out working and working really hard, and she's out, drinking wine and whining and dining throughout the day and whatnot. Like, to me, that might not necessarily be a dynamic I would want.
Yeah.
But again, it just goes back to, well, communicate with each other. What does that look like? Have some boundaries, have some roles, have some whatever it is that works for you guys. Do that. Like I said, I'm more than happy to clean. I quite enjoy cleaning the house, strangely, but that's kind of our setup.
The reason I asked that question is because it seems that a lot of men mind read and set expectations, but those are unwritten social contracts. Meaning, I work all day, you should look after the house, there should be dinner on the table, the house should be clean, the kids should be looked after. But we don't communicate that, do we?
No.
And we don't communicate it well. And when we do communicate it, it's in the form of being resentful, angry, and triggered. On the flip side, our partner probably wants us to help out around the house, provide a good life, have nice things, but they don't communicate that effectively either. They say, why aren't you helping me, whatever. So there's this clash and collision happening. With Rosie and I, when we had Talia, we sat down, and no one does this. We sat down and said, cool, we're about to have a kid. What's your role? What's my role? And I highly recommend everyone listening sets clear roles, and those are changeable, right? So my role is I make money, I provide, and I will make sure you guys are looked after, and you never have to work again unless you want to. That was the promise. If you want to work, work. I don't care if women work. They can do great jobs. Now, what I would love from you from support is, please make sure that I have food. I need to be nourished. Please make sure you raise our daughter well. I think it's way healthier than putting her in daycare. And she went into that role, and she really struggled with it for like 2 years. But now she's crushing that role. And I'll tell you what, when I come home after a long, stressful day, it's up and down, like you say, and I've been putting out fires, or I've fired someone, and my wife is smiling, and there's a hot meal, and everything's in order, it's amazing. But there are nights where I come home and there's dishes in the sink, and the house is a mess. And instead of getting angry, it doesn't matter how tired I am, I go and help out. And it's about that team of being malleable, right? I've just found that having that dynamic, like woman looks after the kids in house, man works, it can work really well if it's done from a frame of love, not chauvinism.
Yeah.
And like, you have to do that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And equally, it's like, I've had enough experience. I'm a very hands-on father. So I've had plenty of times where I've had the kids throughout the day.
Yeah.
And it's hell.
Yeah.
As much as, you love your kids, it is one of, if not the hardest jobs you can have. And so I think it's also equally important for men to understand that it sounds really like, all you've got to do is that.
Well, that's the frame. I don't mean that.
No.
The frame that a lot of guys have.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I guess I'm addressing is that you probably shouldn't have that frame. Definitely have the discussion. And as you say, it's an amazing thing to do as a couple.
Yeah.
But it's freaking hard. Like, as I said, I've done it a few times, and it's like, it's more exhausting when I've done it than what it is working. Like, and I've said that to quite a few mates. It's like, give me working.
Yeah, I'd go in the business
any day than being alone with your children all day.
I want to touch on that as well really quickly. Just honoring all the women out there who are doing a great job, and even if they're struggling, they're doing their best. Now, let's be honest, they have no sleep, their hormones are all over the place. That's out of your control a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And the women who put on a smile and do their very best, like honoring all those women who are doing that. But at the same time, as a man, I think being a leader means giving your partner and family the opportunity to struggle less. So we had a woman reach out last night. Her husband's doing our program and he's crushed it, but all he does is work. And she's got 4 kids as well. And she's finding it really difficult because she doesn't have time to look after herself, go and do Pilates, yoga, nails, stuff like that. I don't think her partner's aware of that, But if he was, he could actually build the business in a way where he can provide that and she has more time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that takes us to balance in business. You're a business coach. We haven't touched the business yet. How does a man who's struggling with some of these issues we talked about create this business and balance where he can have the relationships and the freedom in business? Like, where do you fucking start?
Yeah, it's a good question. As you asked that, I'm thinking, yeah, where the hell do you
Yeah,
start?
what is that?
Like,
What does that mean?
Look, for me, like, we haven't talked about health much, but health is a really, really important part of, health equals energy. Okay, so health is about habits. It's not necessarily about massive amounts of time, like, that you need to be spending hours and hours exercising a day or anything like that. It's like I said, it provides you the energy, right? If you are unhealthy, you do not have the same energy. So your batteries are far larger if you're healthy. And so that would be the first kind of thing I would say, is that you got to look after your health. And to me, my grandfather was amazing at this, and he lived up till 96 and absolute quality. And he always used to say, Jared, he's like, your health is the most important thing. Without your health, you've got nothing. And so, you are working hard in your business and you are doing all these things, but nothing compares to your health. So if you're sacrificing your health in order to provide for your family, to me, that's just stupid.
Yeah. A lot of guys don't realize they can have health without sacrificing. I agree, it's stupid, but a lot of guys aren't aware of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I would say in the top 1% in terms of fitness, strength, health, generally speaking. And it's like, I don't do a hell of a lot. Like, I do a gym session each day. Now I've got years of that, but it's that the whole habit kind of thing, right? And that overnight success is a myth. And that success, however you define it, goes back to the small little actions done on a consistent basis that over time creates success. And so again, it's not, I think it's Atomic Habits they talk about, start with doing something for 2 minutes. Go for a walk for 2 minutes or whatever it is. It's not about volume of time. It's just about the little habits. Going back to your initial question was like, with sort of business and how do you kind of manage it all? I think it's priorities, and I think it's values, and it's, like I said, the best program. We used to say this in our health and fitness business. The best program you can give someone is one they're going to stick to. 10 minutes of exercise is better than 0, and so don't think that you necessarily need to just create this huge overhaul. Maybe some people do, and maybe that will work, but sometimes it's just add that little thing in. That if you do that each day over 12 months, look at the difference that will make.
Do you think that health comes before business? Like, you schedule that in before you schedule your workday in business?
So I'll tell you what I do with clients, and whether this is right or wrong, I don't know, but this is what I do. I start with sleep.
Yeah.
So for me, there's this hustle culture of, glorifying, and I even heard like Ed Milet, I heard something of him, and I really respect the guy and love the guy, but he was like, I have 3 days within one. I work from 6 till 12, and then 12 till 6 is my second day, and then 6 till midnight. And I'm like, that's great, but one, how much sleep are you getting? If you are working 18 hours, I would be pretty confident. We'll talk about REM sleep and deep sleep. It's like, I don't reckon there'd be a lot of that going on scientifically. And anyone, even if you didn't follow the scientific side of it, I think intuitively we all know if you're cutting your sleep short, that's shortening your life. And there is a gazillion amount of resources out there to back up that statement. So for me, I actually start with sleep. And I the average adult, they say 8.25 hours. Personally, that's that's heaps for me. I don't think I could actually get that much. 7 to 7.5 hours is good for me. But you should know for yourself, well, what do you need? And then I reverse it back from, when do you want to get up? So for me, I get up about 4:30 each morning. and let's just assume all the kids sleep in their bed and there's no disruptions. Pretty rare, but let's just say that. And I need 8 hours sleep. I'll add 8 hours. I'll add an extra hour for just lag time. Okay, well, that's when I need to be going to bed. Now that's a idealistic kind of way of looking at it, but I start with your sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Track your sleep. To me, your sleep is the score of everything else that's going on in your life. If you're eating like shit, or if you're not exercising, or you're over-exercising, you're exercising too late, you're staring at your phone overnight, all these different factors will affect your sleep. So if you're sleeping well, the chances are that, there's a lot of other things that are doing well. So I'll go sleep, and then I'll plan morning routines. Now, morning routines have been a buzz. And again, I think they're sort of a bit overhyped in some kind of ways. But if business people are listening to this is about, I have the 3 S's. I didn't come up with them, but we'll leave it at that. Silence, solitude, and stillness are really, really important. Most business owners, they'll roll over, they'll grab their phone next to their bed and, what's the email, social media. Boom, you've just lost control of your mind straight up. You've given the power to something else. Oh, shit, that email. Bang, you're already in that heightened state. So if nothing else, it's having that first hour, and I do this with clients, it's like no technology your first hour. Silence, stillness, all these things where you might read, you might write some shit down, plan your day, whatever it is, but just like that sets the momentum up. Excuse me, equally as important is the other end of the day. So it's your sleep and then the 2 bookends. Nighttime routine is about calming down and unstimulating, if that's even a word.
Yeah.
And similar thing, just, chilling out. And so if nothing else, if people listening to this do that's a huge head start.
Well, I love that, because I asked you how you balance what we talked about earlier with providing and creating success. And what most people would say is, well, do this in your business and do that. But I love the fact that you start with health and routines. So to feed this back to you, for anyone listening, if you want more balance, if you want a better relationship, if you want to make more money working less hours, start with sleep, right? When are you going to get up? 8 hours before then, that's when you go to bed. AM routine, silence, solitude, and stillness for an hour. In Empowered Man, we call it the power up. So you power up before you put your armor on before you face the day.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, business is chaos. It's stressful. It's challenging. And if you put your armor on, you're more resilient to that stress. And we'll get into what to do throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, calm down, slow down, zoom out, reflect, right? Now, a lot of guys will be listening to this and go, great, get up early, get in a good routine, do my day, come home, switch off. But it's like, how the fuck do I switch off? Even 3 months ago, I'd be waking up at 2 a.m. thinking about work. And I teach all this shit, right? So how does somebody calm down, and how do you switch off? What strategies or tactics do you have for a man to get home after a long fucking stressful day, switch that shit off so he can switch on for his family?
So transition time's really important.
Yeah.
So for me, again, my office is in my house. So my from work to dad, husband, all those roles is like, boom, that's instant. Others that work externally and drive home or whatnot, at least there's a little bit of lag time there, but embrace silence, I would say, is really important. Mm-hmm. Turn off your radio, especially now with 4 kids, I get in the car and bang, I just hit the button and I'm like, just stop feeding your mind. Like if you think about all the stimulation that the average worker has had, and then what do they do in their breaks? Again, sit down, they jump on their phone, they're scrolling. Think of you scroll social media, the colors, the sounds, the text. Like we're not meant to be that overstimulated. Like you go back 500,000 years ago, Toni and I going out, all right, let's go slaughter a beast. Effectively, that's all. That's what we're doing. So there's not as much compared to today, where it's just like holy shit. And so, going back to transition time, it might be a walk around the block. It might be a run. Do something to get your heart rate up. Do something to have that bridge in between work and home, right? And, ice baths have become the thing. Like dive in an ice bath, dive in the pool, do something that just separates and gives you that little bit of time in between, I would say is really important because I know it's like, otherwise you just sit there and you're a zombie and you're not present.
Yeah.
And then again, the feminine quite often wants to give you the report of every single detail that's happened throughout the whole day. And you're like, just, fuck, I don't care. Like, and that's just the difference in how we are. Yeah.
I think as well, making it conscious. So what you're saying is like create a transition time and do that consciously. So before you walk through the door, you can imagine it's a force field and tell yourself, I'm consciously choosing to switch off. I think as well for a lot of guys, a run or exercise, ice bath would be helpful, but like taking the thoughts that are still in your head and storing them somewhere. So what we teach at Empowered Man is like, what were my challenges today? What did I achieve today? What did I learn today? And then we look at tomorrow and we plan tomorrow today. So we have all the like thoughts from today, we take them off our head, put them on a journal or an app, and then we plan the next day. So we know what to expect and we're like, cool, I'm good now. Whereas how many men and women wake up and go, fuck, what am I doing today?
Yeah.
I have no idea, right? So I want to tie this into, we've got a lot to cover off, so we have to get you back for part 2, but we have decision-making and focus in business, because most of the time we focus on the wrong shit, right? We don't swallow that frog. That ties into needle movers and leverage. And then what are the most important rules for success? And that all ties into freedom. So let's unpack each of these. When you're coaching someone to run a better business, to create freedom, I'm assuming that's the goal for most people, how do you help them make better decisions and focus on the right things?
Yeah, so freedom's, again, it's probably a little bit of an airy-fairy word almost in this day and age, but I don't know a single human being on the planet that doesn't want freedom and doesn't want choice.
Yeah, freedom.
And so what freedom means different things to different people. For me, I've come from a business where I had about a dozen staff, and like at the minute, like I don't want a lot of stuff. I don't want a lot of headaches. I know I'm leaving money on the table by not necessarily building that business, but I'm cool with that because I don't want that. I don't want that stress. Maybe I will at some point, but right now that's not it. So for me, that's sort of part of that freedom kind of thing. So what was the other part of the question?
Making decisions. Like I find with a lot of men, they want to have a better relationship. They want to have a better business. And I'll coach them, and then 3 to 6 months down the line, they have the same fucking problems.
Yeah.
Same cash flow problems, same staffing problems, same stress problems. And I think it's pretty obvious that if you make the right decisions and focus on the right tasks day by day for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, most of your current problems disappear. They're replaced with new problems, right? So like, how do you help someone make better decisions and focus on the right things?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to the health element as well.
Yeah.
So as the example, and we talked about sleep, if you're not sleeping right and you're tired, you don't make good decisions, right? Or you don't make as good of decisions. And so definitely the health part of it is really important from a clarity perspective.
And then what about prioritization and like knowing what to do? Because there's so many things to do in a business, right?
Yeah. So I love the, I don't know what I'd call it, but it was talked about, I believe, in the 4-hour work week, where he said, okay, what would you do? And I do this a lot with clients that, again, are in this space where they're like, oh, I've got all this stuff going on. What would you do if you could only work 2 hours a day? And so I would want to know, well, what's your results that you're after? What's the actual goals and kind of what does the end point look like? Well, what if you could only do 2 hours a day? What would you do? And quite often people will go, well, I need to do this, X, Y, Z. Perfect. What if you only had 2 hours a week? What would you do? Oh, fuck. And that level of thinking goes back to the Eisenhower matrix of, well, what is the most important things to be doing and prioritizing it? And some things you can't do. Some things I do that a lot with people where I'll go, let's do a brain dump. What's all the things that's on your plate right now? I did it with a client last week actually, and it's like, all right, what can we get rid of? Like what can wait till later? And a lot of this stuff you talked about before, it's just like the end of the day, but same in this process. Get it out of your head and get it on paper. I think is one of the most simplest thing but so underrated as well, is like, get that shit out of your head and get it on paper.
And be at peace with it being there.
Yes.
Like, I had to learn how to let fires burn, you know, like there's this thing that needs to be fixed, but it really doesn't need to be fixed. What's the most important thing? And as a man being like, we want to fix shit, right? Same with your relationship. How do I get this most important thing done and be okay with this thing not being done? Or when someone brings you something in your team, they're like, I need you to do this now. And you just drop everything and have a half-built bridge.
Yes.
So with you, with the most important tasks in the 2 hours a day, like how do you reconcile that with a man who's like, I get it, but I've got so many things to do. They've written it down. Then what?
Well, delegation's another, you know, I talk about automate, delegate, eliminate.
Okay.
And so I think there's a lot of people, the reason why they're successful in business is also a reason why they're overwhelmed. It's because they're maybe control freaks a little bit. There's like, no, give it here. I'll do it better than what they can do it. And so learning to let go is also a very, very important thing that, you know, I've seen bring a lot of people unstuck. They won't do it as good as me. So you know, I'll just do it.
Can you go back to that one? Like, that's a limiting belief, right?
Totally.
What are the most common limiting beliefs you hear that are inhibiting business owners from either freedom or choice or success? So there's one of them's learning to let go. Another one I hear all the time is, I just can't find good staff.
Yeah.
So when you believe these things, then of course you're not going to find a solution. So what are the most common ones you hear?
So I actually had a client a few months back, and he had some staff issues. There was a couple of staff and his thing was always like, oh, if I build bigger, there's just more headaches. And he said a few times, I'm like, I just want to pull you up there. I'm like, who says that? Oh, we'll just, you know. So I think there's so many of these, beliefs that people have that bigger is harder, or making more money is harder, and that's just not the case. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, it's one of the beliefs. Like, what else do you hear from guys that you just go, no, that's completely false? Like, or it doesn't have to be true. Because let's be honest, bigger can be harder, but it doesn't have to be harder. Yeah. Right. So what else do you hear from guys that you're working with?
Yeah, I'd say staff is, without question, staff's the biggest challenge that people have in their businesses. So,
and what do they tell you about that?
You just can't. I'm just trying to think of their exact language, but it's like, you just can't find people like, or the Gen Zs are the other common one that people go, oh, it's the young ones today. They just don't want to work.
Yeah.
Like, they do. like, you know, there may be some generalizations there, but it's not like every single person's like that. So I think, the fact that it probably can't work without them having to control it. And ironically, there was a study done a few years back on this, is what's the number one thing that staff want, and it's autonomy. Like, staff want to feel like they've got some sort of, you know, decision making, and they don't have a tight leash on them type thing. So you know, there's challenges both ways with that. I think that people struggle to let go, and then they resent the fact that they're not let go. And look, they may make mistakes, but good. That's a great learning opportunity. And, you know, if they're not the right person, like going back to my client, is he had these staff that was causing issues, and he was hanging on to them, thinking that his business, basically, he goes, oh, we can't afford to lose them. And I would rarely tell someone, like, you got to get rid of him or do this, but I was like, mate, fucking get rid of him. Like, it's done. He was even talking about giving him a pay rise just to keep him, because even though he threatened the boss almost. I said, trust me. I'm like, something will show up. And within 3 days of him moving this person on and them putting it out there, he got this guy that he said he is the best worker I have ever seen. And so I think there's that abundance mindset or scarcity mindset of like, oh, you know, if this person that's, you know, being no good in the role, letting go of them, I think gets way too much weight high, slow, fire, fast. That is such an important thing in business.
Yeah, and it's funny because everything you just shared is relevant to relationships personally as well. So it's like learning to let go, learning to trust your partner, right? But also leadership, letting your team make decisions. It's the same with your relationship with your partner, right? The limiting beliefs. I can't find good staff. Gen Z don't work well. I don't have enough time. I'm too busy. I can't fit it in. These are all beliefs that fuck up your business. We have the same beliefs in our relationships. My partner doesn't care. All I do is work. It's all just in your head.
Yeah.
Right. So if you believe different things, you achieve different results. I don't know if you've struggled with this. Learning to let go has been a big challenge for me. So the type of leader I was, we grew from a team of 3 to a team of 30 within a year. Fucked it up completely. Had no idea how to hire, how to fire, how to set standards. And then what would happen is I'd delegate to my team, but it wasn't getting done properly, which meant I wasn't delegating, I was abdicating. You figure it out. And then they wouldn't do it properly. So then I'd get angry at them. I'd judge them. Then I'd go and fix it. So I was the hero and the villain. I come and fix it. I'm the hero, but I'm also the villain because I don't trust them. And it's only when I actually learned how to let go that I created that freedom in my business. So how can someone listening to this right now who's struggling to let go of control, struggling to let go of, this tight grip, how does somebody do that effectively without burning everything to the ground?
Well, I mean, systems are everything to a business, right? So I feel like I'm referring to a lot of books today, but
that's
like
okay.
the E-Myth, right? They talk about come up with your company structure, come up with the jobs and the roles, job description within it and the systems, and then you find the people to fill those roles. Now, initially, when you start out in business, you're probably the one that's doing all of them.
Yeah.
And then obviously you get other people in as it grows and develops. Then you get other people to play those roles, and so I think systems are so important in any business. Like I said, I've seen that make and break businesses. That because going back to the freedom piece is that people, if you want freedom, and I always ask this, what would happen if, I'll try not to use anything too dramatic, but something was to happen to you and you're in hospital for 2 months, what would happen to your business? And 99% of the time people go, oh yeah, it shit itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking that way, that you got to build your business that you're not needed. You may want to be in it, and you still can be in it and you still can be active, but you don't have to, because it goes back to the core of why people get in business, because they want freedom to go away on a bloody holiday and not and still get paid, right? And still be servicing people, or the leads are still coming in and whatnot. And most people don't get to that point.
Yeah.
But that's ultimately what you want to do. And like I said, it goes back to creating the systems. I love John C. Maxwell. He got asked once, I actually saw him speak, and he said, someone asked me, he's like, how do you have such motivated staff, John? Like, what do you do with your staff? He said, that's easy. You hire motivated people. Batteries are included. So that's probably another part of the conversation is hiring the right person, which requires skills in itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you find the right people, and I've seen this time and time again where people ignore red flags in the initial part because they hire from a place of scarcity. Shit, we need someone to fill that role like today.
I've done that.
Yeah, so
many
have I.
times.
So have I.
And then you pay for it, and not just a lot of money, but time as well.
Yeah. And there's like, I've done it where someone's turned up late for an interview, but I'm like, oh, they were really good, and they're this and they're this. And because you're like, oh, we really need someone, and you ignore that, it fucking bites you on the ass every time.
Every time, because it's an instant red flag.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier, like we start businesses for freedom so we can take a holiday. It seems that a lot of men get into business for that, but they end up getting stuck in a prison. It's a high paid job. And if there's anyone listening right now and you're working hard to provide for your family, you're building a business, you're in a career, you're trying really hard to grow, you're providing financially, but you can't take time off, you're stressed out, you can't switch off, and it's affecting your relationships and your health, that is a screaming alarm and sign for you to look in the mirror and be a better leader.
Yeah.
Right? Because ultimately it's all leadership. And I think we forget the cost of inaction of not fixing this leadership. Every year you don't know how to make $1 million, $2 million, $3 million without working your ass off is the year you're losing that. right? Every year you don't know how to make $500,000 profit while also being a father and husband is a year you're missing that. And the cost of inaction is really high. So if you are listening to this and you don't know how to have that life, go and find someone who's done it, pay them a bunch of money to figure it out. Because the money you invest in a coach is way less than the money you're going to spend trying to figure this shit out on your own.
Totally.
Right? Now, I do want to touch on one more point. We haven't covered everything I wanted to cover, but that's okay. It's been fucking valuable. If you could just give us your most important rules for business success combined with relationship success, what would they be? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but
That's a big one.
Yeah, like what are the like key takeaways you want people to leave this podcast with to be successful in business and to be successful in their personal lives? So we got health. What else?
Yeah, I mean, like it goes back to the vision, like I talked about, is like, again, you don't necessarily need to know specifically how you're going to go about doing it, but at least having a roadmap of, or a destination rather, of, well, for me, the thing that scares me the most is regret. And we've all probably heard of that study of the regrets of the dying, right? The nursing home in Australia where the nurse did the interviews, I guess, with people that they had 2 weeks to live, whatever it may have been. Like, to me, that makes me feel sick in the guts thinking that you're lying there, you are done, and you have regrets. And most of the regrets I don't necessarily think are, gee, I wish I'd worked away from my family more. You know, I wish I'd eaten more, you know, McDonald's, or I wish I hadn't exercised. Like, so most people have some sort of understanding of what that bigger picture looks like. And I think if nothing else, having a clear vision and having your kind of rules and values and sort of just some clarity around that, if nothing else, is really important. And like I said, these visions and goals and all that, I think sometimes they can be a bit overplayed and overdone. But for me, knowing what's important and reminding yourself constantly of it, like you talked about the reticular activating system, and it's like, if you just do a vision once and then you forget about it, like you need to look at it daily to just jolt you back into place and go, well, I'm actually working because I want to take my family to Disneyland, or I want to, you know, have holidays, or for me, it was getting in and having a business like this so that I did have the freedom to go and watch my kids do an athletics carnival. Or if back in the day, if the surf was pumping, it's like, I don't want to have to have someone go, you can't do that. You have to be here and work for me. So, like I said, I think the vision is really important, and just constantly reminding yourself of what is important. Look, I don't recommend people wallow in thinking about the end of our time. But I don't think it hurt occasionally. The Dalai Lama says, like, life begins at death. And the way I interpret that anyway is that it's in those moments, and I'm sure we've all had it, where we've lost people we care about and whatnot. And funerals for me are always a pretty dark, shitty place. But it always is like that little punch in the face to just go, what's important in that time. And so, like I said, don't wallow in it, but at least give it some sort of thought of like, well, what would you regret? I don't know. For me, that scares the shit out of me of, you know, if my time was up tomorrow, I know I've loved my family. I know I've given it a red hot crack in terms of life and looking after my health. Everyone that's important to me knows I love them. Yeah. I don't carry resentment. People have done wrong by me. I don't care. I've forgiven. I've moved on. So anyway, it might be a long-winded way of getting about it, but I think having a clear vision and having perspective of what's truly important in your life, and constantly reminding yourself, because it's so easy as a businessman to just get in the grind. You're doing the same shit every day, and it feels like Groundhog Day, and you're just on the hamster wheel.
Yeah. And then you go, what's the fucking point of this all?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's actually negative at all to think about death. Like, you are going to fucking die. Yeah. And I think just saying that out loud and really getting to the truth about it's really important. So if you currently don't have a clear vision and you don't have the life you want, and you know, if you're honest with yourself that you will have regrets, then change something. Yeah. Because you could go tomorrow. You know, I've watched a man die in front of me having a heart attack. Like, it was very sobering. And I think about it often as my family, my daughter, my wife, my clients deserve the best, but the best doesn't come unless I become the best. So that vision piece is so important.
And change actually isn't as hard as what you think.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the times, and Tony Robbins talks about this, it's the decision that's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Thank you so much, brother. This has been very impactful. I can't wait to do a part 2. Anything else you want to share with the audience?
No, appreciate it. It's been great chatting.
Awesome. Thanks. Have a great day, guys. Take care.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode and you want to learn how you can have a better relationship, a better marriage, you can be a better father, husband, the man you know your family deserves, then it's very fucking hard to do that just by listening and getting fed information. Sure, this is valuable, but what's much more valuable is having a custom roadmap and a custom plan. And that's exactly what we do here at The Empowered Man. So if you want to learn how to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, and find work-life balance, then that's exactly what we want to help you with. We'll help you make more money, working less hours, have that life you deserve by becoming unfuckwithable. Just tap the link down below in the description and go and book a coaching session with my Empowered Man team. On that session, we'll build your custom Empowered Man roadmap to fix your marriage, reconnect with your children, find work-life balance, and have the life you deserve. Click the link down below right now.